And then the world music thing started coming in the early 90s.
Let's talk about that.
Late 80s, early 90s. Well, I'd always had an interest in listening to a lot of stuff. And I really wanted to study tabla, but there wasn't a teacher around here locally at that time. There were a couple of guys in Lawrence, Clark Jameson, who you guys probably know, and another guy named Mel Smith, but Lawrence was kind of far away. So I started studying Afro-Cuban music with Bird Fleming, who of course you guys all know. Julie, I know, knows. Traditional Music Society is an institution in Kansas City still. But I studied with Bird, who then, you know, I was a quick study, so he graduated me right out to hanging with Augustine Romero Diaz, who was our local rumbero from Havana, from Buena Vista in Marianao. And we spent years with him hanging out, playing and learning Afro-Cuban traditional music.
He must have had a huge influence on you as well.
Oh God, still, I mean, like the piece, the latest piece I produced in the home studio is all built around clave. It's inside of it. It's like it just gets inside of you. You hear it, you can hear that if you listen for it, the clave is the foundation of everything inside that piece.
That brings back awful memories.
Yeah, and then of course, concurrent with the Afro-Cuban thing, involved with our friend Doug Goodhart and sent music from southern and central Ghana and Mali Empire music, also Brazilian bachata music. So I was way into the Afro roots percussion thing all through the 90s, I'd say, for sure. And then concurrent, simultaneous with that, we started New Ear. Yeah, so we were lamenting the fact that there was no contemporary music ensemble in the Western European classical vein in Kansas City. So we were saying we should start one. So we did. And, yeah, that I think we had our inaugural concert in '93, and of course my piece that I wrote for that was based on Afro-Cuban music blended with Western classical harmony and instrumentation. So I had already gone down the road. I was interested in trying to blend, you know, the folkloric, especially African diaspora base with, you know, the Western European thing that I was learning. And I did that all through my New Ear time. I think I was in that group from '93 until about 2001 when I left. So
were there multiple composers in the group? And can you speak to how it is to work with other composers at such a high level in such an interesting kind of group?
Well, there was no lack of material. You know, the one thing that we ran into, which was ungainly about that group, is that it was an artist-driven board. So it moved a little slowly, and there were tensions. There was like a split between people who were interested in more experimental things and people who wanted to produce more traditional contemporary European work. So there was always this tension in there between those two sides, but we balanced it out. You guys know Jeffrey Ruckman, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he was a part of that group for a while too, and brought really interesting ideas. And of course, Dwight Frizzell produced tons of really interesting musical I mean, his stuff always was on the edge of performance art with multi-channel audio and theatrical presentation and obscure references for the pieces. And yeah, my thing was always folkloric based. Yeah, so it was a vibrant time, really interesting programs. We had no lack of ideas, let's put it that way, but we had trouble at times deciding what to do. But we always made it happen. So
Did you work collaboratively together on your songwriting, or was it mostly one person would bring a piece in and everybody would then? I'm interested more in like that songwriting process, because
Yeah, I
we
mean
all
that.
worked in a variety of ways, but how does it,
Yeah, I
and how
mean
does
it
it
was,
best work for you?
in that sense, it was more traditional in that individual composers brought works in, or often, if not works, thematic material for concerts. Like Jeffrey put together these great concert themes, jazz-oriented product, including like his arrangement of Monk and this Eric Satie Parade, which we did in collaboration with Aha Dance Theater at that time. Yeah, so there, I wouldn't say there was compositional collaboration, other than I did a piece that involved more improvisation towards the end. It was called Soul Flow Chart 2, which left room for improv from the players. And Bill McCamey played on that. It was really great. Yeah, so that it was more traditional in that sense. And I, you know, I kind of come out of that line. The composer thing is like a little more singular than collaborative, I think.
It's interesting you were involved in a lot of this avant-garde stuff, but you're also have a long history of being involved in different folk traditions. Like, for example, when you're talking about working with Augustine, and you know, in a way, you're working at preservation of some of these traditional forms. And how does that come together in your composition nowadays?
Well,
Great question.
it's probably less. I don't know how to say it. I mean, the thing is, I've I've spent so many years cooking in those styles that it just comes out. Like it's not even predetermined at this point. In those early days, it was like I was saying, okay, I want to do this. I'm going to take this thing and put it with that. And now I'm trying to let it be a little more organic and intuitive versus prescribed and pre-thought out, maybe, because it just comes through. I mean, I would almost have to make a concerted effort to negate that at this point, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, it's interesting, especially with the Afro-Cuban thing, I think as much as really just being affected and in love with the music, and especially the spiritual side of it, which is deep and inside all of it, was keeping Augustine connected to it. Because he, you know, he was a Marielito, and out here in Kansas City, a guy from Havana, he could have easily it could have disappeared for him. And we managed to keep it in his life all the way to the end. So that was a big part of it for me too, even though, you know, it was totally self-serving, because I just loved playing. You know, God, we'd spend hours. I can remember going out to Loose Park. We'd get out there at 2 p.m, and I'd be taking him home at midnight, you know. And
so where in the timeline are we right about now? This is like
no,
early 2000s?
This is more through the 90s, I'd say, even though the Roombas continued all through until Augustine passed in 2014. We were still doing them.